public-private partnership
Absolutely.
and long-term strategic planning, as opposed to, hey, this is what we're going to do this week,
Right.
and next week's pricing, and then, God forbid you had to deal with the, was it multi-1,000% or 1,000+% increase in surge pricing that happened in several states. Several of us, are going to feel two sides with government.
Yeah.
That government and regulation may not be the best thing. On the flip side, you want to have long-term strategic planning and partnership because you're not going to be able to get the investment capital required and the bond issuances for whether it's 20, 50-year, 100-year strategic plans.
Yes.
Georgia and Southern Company made a bet, I don't know how many decades ago Vogtle was an idea.
Yes.
And I know that was a very controversial investment.
Yes.
But for those of us who don't know about Vogtle,
yes.
and thankfully it is, I think, one of the most exciting times, like you said, in history. And I'll give you a little background. And I know several of you know. My father was in the nuclear industry in the 60s and 70s and 80s and early 90s with nuclear reactor development in the Navy program, subs, aircraft carriers, and space rockets.
Yeah.
Then 3 Mile Island happened.
Yes.
And then, you had, did anybody watch the Chernobyl series? If you weren't afraid and you were bored during COVID, that was a very chilling video. It was more dramatized. I'm not saying it was a good thing or a bad thing, but it basically shut down the nuclear industry for decades.
It did.
Can you give us some context of who, I know there's a lot of people that are involved with making that bet, and it was decades ago to make these small modular nuclear reactors. Can you give us some context in the future of that and its relationship with data centers, the future growth and demand from an energy standpoint?
Absolutely, would love to. So you're right, JP, it was a huge bet. It was a big bet. And this was early 2000s when Georgia is forecasting what does growth look like over the next 20 years and what do we need to build. One of the things that I want to brag on really quickly is the way that we keep a diverse generation mix, which means we make electricity a variety of ways using a variety of fuels and not just one way. And that's important because just like the way that you invest in the market, you would never put all your eggs in one basket, same. And so back in the early 2000s, when we applied to build the next 2 nuclear units that, fast forward to today, have no new nuclear in the United States in over 30 years. When we applied back 15-ish years ago, there were 24 projects in the pipeline. So the United States had utilities applying for about 24 different nuclear units to be built. Fast forward to 2023 and 2024, when our 2 units come online, guess how many of those 24 projects made it across the finish line? Just our 2. Just our 2. I say that to reiterate, new nuclear had not been built in the United States in over 30 years, and it's extremely hard, extremely hard. I also share that because there's sometimes an elephant in the room about, well, Southern Company took a long time and it cost a lot. Both things are true, right? It does take a long time to build nuclear, but we were having to redevelop an entire nuclear ecosystem in the United States that hadn't been there in 3 decades. So you're redeveloping the supply chain, you're redeveloping the workforce, and you're you're managing a newer relationship with the regulatory entities that manage nuclear. And that is a moving target. And so whoever went first in the United States was going to take longer and probably pay more. And so while we hate that those 2 things happened, what it does do is today, your energy prices, raise your hand if you felt a pinch in your energy bill, in your electric bill in the last couple of months. Yep, me too. I'm being fully transparent, me too, right? Energy prices are at an all-time high across the United States, and that's due to several reasons. But here in the southeastern United States, specifically here in Georgia, one of the reasons why our rates stay 15% below the national average is because nuclear is part of our baseload generation. Nuclear is 3 to 6 times cheaper than its next counterpart, gas. So had we not built that and started that, right, our prices, which are already kind of high right now based on market drivers, would be even higher. And our reliability, nuclear is the most stable, most reliable of our generation sources because it stays on 24/7, and it's the cleanest. So today, with those two new nuclear units online, Georgia, the state, is the largest producer of clean energy in the entire United States.